Tyrann Mathieu retires. The
Salute.
former all-pro safety, slot cornerback, drafted by the Cardinals. Obviously, I think people remember, but it's not as publicized now, but had those, got kicked out of LSU, had that troubled start to his NFL career, dropped in the draft because of it. But he was a stud since day one, and actually had a troubled start to his career too. I think people forget that his very first year he tore his ACL. His third year of his career he tore his ACL. Still managed a 12-year career, multiple All-Pros, Super Bowl rings in there as well. Tyrann Mathieu, heck of a career given how it all started for him coming out.
One of the realest, really live it. He was really living it. The guy was really living it. When I got to play with him at the end in Kansas City, and he was just, a leader amongst men, and you could tell the way that guys respected him. And I was lucky enough to meet him at the beginning of our careers because we both came out in the 2013 draft. Both of us had massive red flags attached to our character sheet. And we required more than a dozen meetings back to back on one another with these coaches at the NFL Combine, these private meetings. You get a lot of meetings when you got red flags because they want to see it in person and they want to find out, they want to get it from the horse's mouth, I guess you could say. And we had a ton of meetings. And I remember at the time thinking, oh my God, that's the Honey Badger. I watched him every Saturday. And we were on Oregon. I was on a really good team. We had plenty of stars, but I was starstruck going into the draft process, meeting Tyrann Mathieu and watching him have this career after you alluded to it. Year 1 ACL, year 3 ACL, and then the all pros to follow. Unbelievable career for the Honey Badger. What a great dude, a legend in Louisiana. I just hope I know and I hope that he's still involved in football because the next generation of kids needs to learn from a guy like that.
And, it is, we're kind of touching on it, but really to put a fine point on it, our football history is littered with guys who had who had immense talent, who had those red flags, and who ultimately failed in their pursuit of professional football and stardom, right? And Tyrann Mathieu, I think, is one of the extreme few who rose up above that, right?
He refused to be that.
And learned from mistakes. And some of those mistakes are not considered mistakes anymore. He liked weed. Okay, right?
Straight to jail.
Right? And that's just not a deal in the NFL and in parts of society anymore like it was 10, 12, 15 years ago. Okay, we all know that. And the fact that you mentioned all those red flags and you mentioned 2 ACLs, he was on the 2010s all-decade team. Okay, he wasn't just a cultural thing, right? He wasn't just a guy that Louisiana, right? He was a dude up there with the Darrelle Revises. And
you had to know where he was. I remember, 2016, I played right tackle for the Bears, and it was my first time dealing with the littler guys that were on the edge that were bringing the blitzes from the nickel spot, corner blitzes. And I remember we'd play the Cardinals, and I have my hands full at the line of scrimmage, and this guy, 32, would find a way to get by me all the time. And I just, some guys have a nose for the football and an understanding for the game. He had that. It was like Troy Polamalu type stuff where it's wait, where did he go? Where the hell is that? He can piss you off. He can ruin a game plan.
If I could tell a brief story, and then we'll move on here about Tyrann Mathieu, just to speak to what kind of guy he was. We interviewed him back when I was with Pro Football Focus. I want to say something like 2019 or so. Interviewed him, went great. He was super nice, answered some questions even before and after. 3 months later, my co-host on that podcast, Austin Gale, announces that he got a promotion at PFF. Tyrann Mathieu reached out to him and congratulated on the side to say that he was happy for him. And that's just the fact that we interview an NFL player and he kept in touch afterwards. It was happy for us. That's just the type of guy that Tyrann Mathieu is. All right, moving from one all-pro safety to another, Jamal Adams. Remember that name? Former New York Jet, former Seattle Seahawk. Well, he's back with Pete Carroll, signed with the Raiders. Now, I say remember that name because he's only played 583 snaps in the past 3 seasons after obviously tearing his quad. Hasn't quite been the same, but he's not even 30 years old. Is this going to make any difference to the Raiders, JJ?
So I'll say this quickly about Jamal Adams. We have their safety. We know him as a safety. The sort of joke about Jamal Adams is he's not a safety, he's a linebacker. Do not at all be surprised in this training camp if you see Jamal Adams for the Raiders be a linebacker.
Okay.
I think they're going to call him whatever they want to call him, and you're going to figure it out in press conferences or whatever. But if you want to look at a heat map of where he lines up in July and August, I'm telling you, he's gonna be at the mid-level of that defense. I think the Raiders are going to use him, or at least try to use him, because who knows if this is going to work out? Who knows if he's going to be on the Week 1 roster or not? They're going to look to him to be a linebacker this summer.
Well, we know that the position has changed a lot in like the last 10 years. I mean, since I got in the league 12 years ago, the guys who are playing linebacker look completely different. I mean, one of the first heads that I hit at the second level was Ray Maluga. He had a watermelon for a head, and he was like 240 pounds. The linebackers now can run. You know, at a certain point in my career, I played against Ryan Shazier, and God, if you never saw him play the game of football, I wish you could go watch him play when he was healthy. But now it feels like all the linebackers can run like that, and they're all shifty, and they have the ability to hit the gaps on the run. I'm interested to see how Jamal Adams fares if he is in the middle of the defense, because the thing that he's known for is his big hits, but what I don't think he's known for is his tackling efficiency. So if he's going to be at the linebacker spot, it'll show very quickly in the summer heat. Well, I guess they'll be in the AC in Vegas, but they'll find out if he can play linebacker very quickly.
The Raiders kind of have like a linebacker rehab going. So they have him, they have Devin White, and they have Jalen Smith, who I didn't even realize was still in the league, who is another guy who had like a massive injury that really hampered him, but obviously made a comeback from that in the NFL. But all those three guys to be, well, backups as it's later right now. I wanted to ask you, Kyle, though, this, because I think it's been pretty clear from watching him past few years that it's just like the former greatness is not there, right? It's not like Jamal Adams going to come back and be the Jamal Adams we saw with the Jets. It's like Jamal Adams could come in and maybe play like a little bit of a role for him. How do you, as a player, how did, you know, when you saw players towards the end of their careers who were once like difference makers, but hanging on to get like minimum deals at the end of their career, what were those guys mentally at, and how were they handling that?
I can only speak immediately from my experience, but if I were to guess at what some of these guys are going through, I would say that there's a handful of guys that when they know that their juice has been squeezed, they get out because, you know, they can't put their pride aside. They refuse to be a guy on the field that they don't recognize as themselves. And part of me wishes that I got out of there earlier because I didn't recognize the guy at the end. And it haunts me to this day. But then there's guys who I also feel this way that can't put the helmet away. They can't stop playing. They love the guys that they play with. They love going to training camp. They love the off season. They love everything about being in the National Football League. Obviously, the paychecks are great. And they just continue to try to play it. It takes going out there and realizing in real time in a big way that you just can't do it anymore. And I'm not saying that that's Jamal Adams, but there's a lot of guys in that boat that are trying to hang on and play again because they don't know what they're going to do after they're done. And life is so big after football that it's like thinking about how big space is. You ever stop and think about and then you get stressed out a little bit? Oh,
absolutely. You're like, I don't even want to think about this anymore.
That's what happens when you're like, oh my God, the locker gets cleaned out eventually. And then like, I got to leave. And then I don't have a swipe to get back in the building. And, you know, no meme intended because Jamal Adams has the meme where he literally can't get in the building. But, yeah, that's where I'm at as a former player. Even last year, I was training for a comeback in case, you know, a team like the Chiefs needed an offensive lineman. I never got a call. I never had an opportunity, but it's not going away in my mind. And that's, you know, to be not brief, that's where I'm at.
All right. Well, we hope for the best for Jamal Adams and company.